Randy, how many water towers can you count down there?
I'm at about 14.
More than 5? Do you know the official number?
That's a secret. I earned that.
Ozarks National is at the Big Cedar Lodge near Springfield, Missouri, nearer to Branson, Missouri. Just a pretty outrageous golf resort, but actually, you know what, Randy, we can even debate that if it is a golf resort. Kind of like a family fun resort, and they've sprinkled in some golf, really like some pretty premier golf over the last 4 or 5 years. It's turned into a pretty interesting place that I did not know much about. I don't think Randy knew much about it. It was a pretty cool place to go visit. So Ozarks National opened in 2019. They had already been doing some pretty interesting stuff at Big Cedar Lodge golf-wise. The Buffalo Ridge, the Foz course was already there. The Top of the Rock, the short course that Jack Nicklaus did, was already there. And Ozarks National was put in by Coore Crenshaw as kind of just a different beat, a different sort of flavor of golf. I think, from everything I've seen, I haven't played it yet, but Buffalo Ridge is much more, kind of target golf, hit it here, whereas Ozarks National was designed much more to be played on the ground. All the cliches you hear us talking about all the time. It's meant to play firm and fast. It's meant to play up in the wind, in the kind of exposed ridges, and it's a totally different kind of golf course, especially seeing Payne's Valley across the street is the most recent one that Tiger Woods and Bill Welling did, and just seeing all of those in contrast, Ozarks National stands out, at least to me, as a totally different kind of golf, which is kind of exactly what I think you're trying to do at a golf resort like that. They shouldn't all feel the same, so I think that's a pretty big positive in its favor.
That's how you finish.
I thought the golf course was excellent. It was just a extremely restrained, extremely handsome golf course. It is what's really cool is it's this pretty severe piece of land, it seems like, where you've got all these ridges and fall-offs and just like very rumpled kind of land. And what they chose to do, which I think was pointed out to us, was the holes kind of follow the tops of those ridges rather than going up and down constantly. And I thought that was really cool, that you're playing on this extremely dramatic land, but you're not constantly walking uphill and walking downhill, and you're not hitting any of these, bombs away tee shots down some outrageous hill. You're just kind of taking this like really pretty peaceful stroll around the tops of these ridges, and that, at least for me, made for like just a really comfortable, fun, relaxing round of golf. Just feels very natural and feels very like it was always there and they kind of found it. Like that, I think that's one of the cool things about the Coore Crenshaw courses that you play, is most of the time, you can't tell if they're 2 years old or if they're 70 years old. You know what I mean? It just kind of feels like that piece of land has always had golf on it. And I feel like that's kind of one of the biggest compliments you can give to an architect.
Oh, God, I felt that.
So the course starts out, it's kind of, I think 1 and 2 are kind of get me overs to get you to a certain piece of the property, or to kind of squeeze out, get to 18 total holes. But then you get to 3, and I think that's where the identity of the course really starts to kind of shine through. You've got this short par 4, you're making decisions off the tee, you're seeing different angles, all that kind of stuff, and I think that carries through really the rest of the golf course. I mean, there's some really cool choices that you have on a lot of different tees. All the par 3s are really great.
All right, what do we got on 7?
So we got a drivable par 5, but driver is not a necessity. You can easily lay up and play it as a 3-shot hole, but if you choose to go driver, the fairway is going to narrow on you quite a bit, and also the fairway is going to kick and run towards the drop-off. So you really want to play the right side of the fairway if you're going to hit driver, and you got to be accurate with it.
Randy has driver.
I will have driver.
I will not be hitting driver.
Oh, I mean, that's
Into
money.
The
You just hit a cut too. That's unbelievable.
Hell yeah, we got them all. DJ with a bit less than driver.
Yep.
think it was number 8 was the short one. Almost feels like you're at like LACC or something, but you've got this massive wide scale. Just a really cool kind of do or die, hit this little short iron in there with these death bunkers all around, and a really cool green. I thought the back 9 was really outstanding. I think 10, you kind of fight up this hill to get to a really cool part of the property. And then 11, I know Randy was absolutely tickled by 11, had a big tree in the middle of the fairway.
From the tee box, it looks like it's pretty straight away, wide open fairway, but there's a tree that looks like it's sitting dead in the middle of the fairway. But the hole actually snakes around it to the right pretty dramatically. And the edge of the green, you have this huge drop off on the left side where it's probably a 10-foot wall, pretty vertical. So you want to be on the green side of that, otherwise it's a really tough up and down from the left side. But otherwise, a very reachable par 5.
I'm sure some people will absolutely hate that. I thought it was super fun because it's kind of there's not much to the hole otherwise. It's a short par 5 that your kind of only real big challenge is like, don't get stuck right behind this tree. And if memory serves, I think Randy got stuck right behind the tree, which I think delighted him more than upset him for sure.
You love trees in the middle of the fairway.
Love them.
Totally boned.
I have many takes, but this one I believe the most. Our centerline fairway trees are the best. They challenge you in up, down, left, right, multiple dimensions. Bunkers
Across time
just don't
and
do
space.
that. Yeah, exactly. And I'm kind of porked right here. What an honor. Weird spin.
12's a really cool par 3, kind of a Redan style, massively sloped green, just like a beautiful, beautiful shot. 13, you whip around this corner. It's kind of a cut off as much of the corner as you think you can. And again, just like a really beautiful, beautiful walk. Great bridges. I think the bridges we found out were, I don't know if they were done by like some local Amish groups that did them all by hand. I mean, they were like serious craftsmanship that went into some of the bridges out there. And then I think 14 was probably my favorite hole. You're playing up over this ridge, and then once you kind of crest the hill, you just see this gorgeous vista, and maybe it was the time of day we were out there. It was just really, really beautiful setting, and it was one that I would love to play again because I didn't really totally know what was going on. It was the definition of like, holes only blind the first time you play it. But there were a bunch of different ways you could hit your tee shot there. I think Phil Mickelson, when they had the Champions Tour event out there, was blowing it 100 yards right on purpose to get some kind of mega angle. But that's kind of like the vibe that you get out there when you've got these big swaths of land and you've got super wide fairways. Is kind of challenges you to use the whole property and be a little bit more creative. So 15 and 16 kind of middle length par 4s that would be really interesting, especially if you're kind of moving around tee boxes or something. Then 17 was another one, just a really little wedge down the hill, really cool. Kind of feels like you're gonna make an ace standing on the tee.
Great marketing promo if you can make an ace here.
Spoiler alert, none of us did. But it's one of those par 3s that just
Right
feels so appealing, like it's just a really fun shot to hit. And then 18 was just a beautiful one too. Dogleg right up the hill, cresting back up towards the really cool clubhouse. And like I said, I mean, I know a lot of this is colored by the sunset that we got and the view that we had and the weather that we had, all of which was really perfect. But it's just a really peaceful way to wrap up your round.
Do you remember what you shot?
I don't remember what I shot, and I can't log into my Gin app, but I think I was right around 80. I think I shot even on the front, if memory serves.
That's right. You played really well.
I played well and shot even on the front, and then so I don't think I shot 80 maybe, but I think I definitely fell off a cliff, so to speak, on the back. So I think it was 78, something like that. On the front, it's really fun to play golf courses that have a lot of options when you're really striking the ball well and you can take advantage. But then on the back, I think I got to see a lot of what happens when that's not going your way and how a hole can look pretty easy and you hit it in the wrong spot and you can't possibly get up and down. And the course had a lot of those aspects to it too. I think the word I keep saying over and over is like natural. I think that's what I'll remember most, is especially in comparison to some of the other golf courses that we saw. I mean, it felt like a very natural walk and a very just pretty place to go spend 4.5 hours. It was, it didn't feel manipulated. It didn't feel overdone or overcooked or anything like that. It was just like very subtle and restrained, and standing on some of those ridges and just feeling like you're you're meant to be there and you're meant to be like playing golf there, it's a great use of the land. When you see a course like that, I think it's such a pretty area of the country that when an architect really chooses to kind of focus on the natural beauty of it, I think it really does a better job of maybe honoring the beauty of a place like that rather than blowing it to smithereens. And you know, you can see Randy's video on Payne's Valley if you want to see hear the rest of that sentence, I guess.